Yeah, it's just like
I
my
think she
thought
made.
process is like I get that some people don't want to go back and do like the research of it because that's just the different. There's people have different ways of creating what things inspire them.
Yeah,
Some people may not even really watch that many movies as a director because what realistically inspires them is listening to maybe soundtracks or just listening to music and it gives
Yeah.
them ideas. But I think a lot of times what it comes down to is like you can take what's been done before yeah, what's been done before you, and you can take pieces from that for your current thing. And if you go back and do like a lot of old film history, you might be able to pull stuff that people aren't currently pulling from anymore because they're pulling from someone who pulled from something before.
yeah,
And it might seem like it's something new and fresh because you pulled something from a movie from the 40s, but with the eyes of today. Whereas it's going to seem different if all the other directors around you are pulling from a movie from the 70s that pulled from that movie.
yeah,
It's going to be slightly different, which then people see yours as like, oh, it's like this original thing. And it's like, well, no, I kind of did the same thing these people did. It's just I pulled from the original source with my own eyes
yeah,
versus these guys and girls are pulling from this person here who pulled from that thing.
yeah. And I get that. But it's kind of same like I studied computer science, right? And we learned about how computers were made, like the
Yeah.
first computers. None of that affects me at all right now, at all. Like I'm in the industry and I don't need to know what the first computer was. I don't need to know
Yeah.
what the first programming language was. I didn't need to know that. For now, I just want to get to a point where I don't even need to know necessarily how to. I need to know how to program, but I don't need to know the real gritty specifics of
Yeah.
it because I get all these tools that help me. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say. You don't need to. I guess you should. I don't know. It's just.
Well, here's the thing I think of when you say that is
Yeah.
like, I think for like your day to day, you don't need to know any of that shit.
Yeah.
But if you decided like, okay, I want to build like my whole entire operating system from scratch, from the ground up, I think it helps to know what was done before and how they did it.
Yeah, I don't think
But
so.
you may not have a need to. But I'm just saying, like, I think it's helpful to know how other people might have done something that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
If you're trying, as I said, if you're trying to literally build your own Windows off of nothing else, and just seeing how they developed it might give you some level of like, okay, here is my kind of framework for how I should go forward doing this.
Yeah, sure.
Whether it be doing the same thing, but with your own language you want to do, or if you want to do something completely different, it helps to still have some level of a scaffolding of what was done before.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
So I think that's where it comes beneficial. But if you're just going to be working day to day, you may not even need to know it.
Sure. Yes and no. Like, I guess say you want to build your own operating system. You want to build Windows. It's not really a good example because
I know I don't have good examples because it's not my area.
let's say you want to build a website or you want to build an application.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what the first application was and how the industry was changed by that build. You just need to know what tools you need to know to build it. And there's a lot of resources to tell you what's the most efficient, what type of application you want, what the tools you need to do that, blah blah blah. And I guess them figuring out what is good comes from like the history of it.
Yeah.
But you don't need
Yeah, you're
to
relying
know.
on somebody else who's figured all that stuff out based
Yeah.
on what was done before.
Exactly. And that's how I feel about like recent movies. I don't need to go all the way back to the first movie we ever made because I see it with the recent movies.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's kind of more still an apples and oranges type of argument in that
I guess.
because with computer science, in a lot of ways, it's kind of an engineering thing of like, there is a most efficient way of doing things. Whereas with a movie, there's a degree to artist interpretation and interpretation of an audience. So I don't know if it's not I don't think it's a comparable, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a comparable argument.
Like for example, let's say Steven Spielberg made a movie that he pulled from, like he got inspired from movies back in the 30s.
Yeah, that's all his films.
Yeah, and so I see a movie by Steven Spielberg and
Yeah.
I'm inspired by it. I can be inspired by a part that he was inspired by in the 30s. I don't need to go back to the 30s to see that. I can see what Steven Spielberg did and be inspired by that.
Well, my point is like, you're being inspired by the way Spielberg did it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is like, there's maybe another way to pull a new, fresh idea is to go back to the original source that he pulled from to pull it your way because you might take a completely different thing from your life experiences and the way things are today. You may pull that thing and pull something completely different than what he pulled in the 70s.
Sure, or I could not. Or I could see where Steven Spielberg comes from and like I like Steven Spielberg's better. And a lot of times that's how I feel.
Well, I'm just saying it's a way also to distinguish yourself from other people because they're probably doing the same thing, pulling from that same thing from Spielberg.
And Spielberg probably did the same thing other directors did.
Well, they all took from John Ford. That's where all that came from.
But yeah, a lot. See, my experience was I go back to these movies that I see, and I'm like, yeah, I like how the recent artists did it better. I enjoyed that better, and I'm inspired more by that than because I wasn't alive in the 30s. Like I don't.
I mean, of course, that's just how you're like. We're going in circles again.
I know.
It's like I get what you're saying, and then I'm saying is like I think it's beneficial to still go back and do the research because you may be able to pull something that no one's ever pulled before.
Yeah,
but
it's just two different.
Yeah, we're having two different mindsets.
I get it.
One may be better, one may not be better. It may be this. It does. It's just if it ends up the product being the way you want it to be,
that's all that matters. Yeah, I get it.
That has another discussion point, but I think we are at a point in this episode. But we'll discuss it the next one.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Well, this time we didn't yell at each other, so I think that's a good episode.
Yeah, we had a meaningful discussion, I guess.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, we didn't even hit a single one of those things I was planning to talk about.
I feel like that's usually how it goes. We miss like majority of what we want to talk about. We just talk about random stuff.
Yeah, it's a good thing we don't have a whiteboard because we wouldn't be talking about that shit.
We wouldn't hit any marks.
Because I feel like I can't purposely hit something.
Yeah, because it feels
because
like,
I just don't have the skill.
It feels forced. Yeah,
I don't have the skill to like naturally go from a topic to another topic that I want to discuss. Usually,
we're not good. We're not that good yet.
Yeah, we suck at this.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, we're all impulse. All impulse, no plan. That's the name of this podcast. Actually, it's about the lineup. Peace out.